You know you should be working on that goal, right? The one that keeps getting pushed to tomorrow, or next week, or never. We all feel that tug-of-war between wanting to improve and endlessly delaying. If you're tired of self-sabotaging your growth, this video is about to reveal the surprising psychological reasons why you keep putting off your potential. Understanding these 7 barriers, the perfectionism, the fear, the fatigue, the bias, the shame, the identity conflict, and the ambiguity is the first step toward reclaiming your agency. You aren't broken, and you aren't destined to stay where you are. You're simply operating with a brain that is trying to protect you using outdated software. By recognizing these patterns as they happen, you can start to bridge the gap between your intentions and your actions. You can start small, be messy, and be kind to yourself along the way. Self-improvement isn't about a sudden, miraculous transformation. It's about a series of small, conscious wins over the parts of your psychology that would rather see you stay small and safe. It's a strange phenomenon when you stop to think about it. We have these visions of our ideal selves, the person who wakes up early, eats well, masters a new language, or finally starts that side business. We want the benefits of these changes. We want the health, the wealth, and the confidence. Yet, when the moment arrives to actually do the work, something inside us pulls the emergency brake. We find ourselves cleaning the kitchen for the 3rd time today or scrolling through social media for inspiration, rather than actually doing the thing that matters. This isn't just a lack of willpower, and it certainly isn't because you're lazy. Procrastination, especially when it comes to self-improvement, is a deeply rooted psychological defense mechanism. It's a way our brain tries to protect us from perceived threats, even when those threats are totally imaginary. The first major hurdle we often face is what psychologists call the perfectionism trap. Now, you might think of a perfectionist as someone who works tirelessly until every detail is flawless. But in the world of procrastination, perfectionism looks a lot more like paralysis. It's that all-or-nothing mindset that whispers, if I can't do this perfectly, I shouldn't do it at all. When you set a self-improvement goal, you're often envisioning a perfect end state. You want the perfect workout routine, the perfect diet, or the perfect first draft, because the gap between where you are now and that perfect vision is so vast. The sheer weight of your own expectations becomes crushing. You become so afraid of making a messy start or producing mediocre work that your brain decides the safest route is to not start at all. You stay in the planning phase forever because as long as the project is just an idea, it remains perfect. The moment you take action, you risk reality falling short of your imagination. This internal resistance creates a cycle where you wait for the right time or the right mood, but as we all eventually learn, that perfect moment is a ghost. It never actually arrives. This leads us directly into a second, more hidden barrier, the fear of failure, which often dances hand in hand with its strange cousin, the fear of success. We understand the fear of failure intuitively. If we try to improve and we fall short, we have to face the idea that we aren't as capable as we hoped. It's an attack on our ego. By procrastinating, we create a built-in excuse. If you fail because you didn't start until the last minute, you can tell yourself, I didn't fail because I'm not good enough. I failed because I ran out of time. It's a self-protective lie. But the fear of success is just as potent. Success in self-improvement implies change. It implies a new set of expectations and a new identity. If you actually lose the weight, or get the promotion, or become a disciplined person, people will expect you to stay that way. You might lose your old social circle, or you might find that the new you has responsibilities you aren't ready for. Procrastination, then, becomes a way to keep yourself in the comfortable, predictable now, even if that now is something you claim to want to change. As we navigate these fears, we often run into a very modern psychological war, decision fatigue and cognitive overload. We live in an era of infinite choices. If you want to improve your fitness, there are 10,000 different programs, diets, and apps to choose from. When we are faced with too many options, our brains experience a choice paralysis. The mental energy required just to decide which path to take exhausts us before we even take the first step. This is why you might spend 3 hours researching the best way to learn a language rather than spending 20 minutes actually learning it. Your brain views the decision-making process as a high-stakes labor, and when it gets overwhelmed, it defaults to the easiest path possible, doing nothing. This cognitive overload is a silent killer of ambition because it makes the simple act of starting feel like an insurmountable mountain of administrative work. While your brain is busy being overwhelmed by choices, it's also fighting a biological battle known as present bias, or hyperbolic discounting. This is a fancy way of saying that our brains are evolutionarily hardwired to prioritize immediate rewards over long-term gains. Think about our ancestors. They didn't know if they'd have food tomorrow, so they had to eat everything they could today. That same ancient hardware is still running your brain. Your future self, the one who is fit, educated, and successful, feels like a stranger to your present self. When you have to choose between the immediate comfort of sitting on the couch and the long-term benefit of a grueling workout, the couch wins almost every time because the reward is happening now. Your brain discounts the value of the future reward because it's far away and uncertain. We treat our future selves like a person we don't particularly like. We're happy to pile work onto them because we don't have to feel their stress in the present moment. Overcoming this requires more than just wanting it more. It requires closing the emotional gap between who you are today and who you will be in 5 years. But even when we recognize these biases, we often stumble into the fifth and perhaps most damaging psychological trap: the lack of self-compassion and the resulting shame spiral. We have this cultural idea that we need to be hard on ourselves to change. We think that if we just beat ourselves up enough for procrastinating, we'll eventually shame ourselves into action. The psychological reality is the exact opposite. Procrastination is an emotional regulation problem, not a time management problem. We procrastinate to avoid the negative feelings associated with a task, feelings like boredom, anxiety, or self-doubt. When we then criticize ourselves for procrastinating, we add a layer of shame and guilt to the mix. Now the task is associated with even more negative emotions. So, what do we do to escape that new, intensified shame? We procrastinate more to distract ourselves. This is often called the "what the hell" effect. You miss one day of your new habit, you feel like a failure, and you say, "What the hell, I've already ruined it," and then you quit for a month. Breaking this cycle requires the radical realization that being kind to yourself when you fail is actually the most productive thing you can do. Moving deeper into the subconscious, we find the sixth reason: identity conflict. Each of us has a self-schema, an internal map of who we believe we are. If you've spent years identifying as the person who isn't good with money, or the person who isn't athletic, your brain will actively resist any changes that contradict that map. This is known as homeostasis. Just as your body tries to maintain a constant temperature, your psyche tries to maintain a constant identity. When you start making self-improvement moves that suggest you are a different kind of person, your subconscious mind perceives it as a threat to your stability. It feels fake or wrong. You might start making progress, only to find yourself self-sabotaging because the new you feels like an imposter. You procrastinate to return to the version of yourself that feels familiar and safe, even if that version is unhappy. Lasting change requires not just changing your actions, but slowly and deliberately updating the story you tell yourself about who you are. Finally, we arrive at the seventh reason, which is the problem of ambiguous goals and the vague intention hurdle. The human brain is a goal-striving machine, but it needs clear coordinates to function. When we set goals like, "I want to be more productive" or "I want to get in shape," we aren't actually giving our brain a command it can follow. Ambiguity is interpreted by the brain as a threat. If a task isn't clearly defined, your brain doesn't know how much energy it will require, so it preserves energy by avoiding the task altogether. This is why you might procrastinate on writing a book, but you won't procrastinate on writing a grocery list. The list is concrete. The book is a sprawling, misty forest of unknowns, without a specific actionable starting point. Your best intentions will always fall victim to the tomorrow trap. You aren't procrastinating on the goal itself. You're procrastinating on the uncertainty that surrounds it. The journey toward your potential is rarely a straight line. It's a winding path filled with these mental hurdles. But now that you know what they are, you can see them coming. You can catch the shame spiral before it starts. You can break down your ambiguous goals into tiny, undeniable steps. You can acknowledge the fear of success and move forward anyway. Every time you choose to take a step despite these psychological pressures, you're not just working on a goal, you're rewiring your brain for growth. If you like this content, drop a comment and subscribe.